Okay, good morning, everybody. We are now on Perek Ches. Yeah, we are on Perek Ches Mishna Beis. Shvius, Shemitah produce. Nitna la'achila, it is given to be used for eating, l'shtia for drinking, l'sicha and for anointing oneself with it. So we know the Torah clearly says that Shemitah produce is to be eaten. Drinking, as a rule, falls under the same category as eating. And sicha, anointing, is similar to eating. Because as we spoke about previously regarding to using Shemitah produce for dyeing, the Torah says that we can use Shemitah for eating. It means anything similar to eating, meaning something that you benefit from it as you eliminate it, as you actually consume it, as you do by eating, is permissible with Shemitah produce. That's why dyeing is permitted, and that's why anointing is also permitted. As you smear your skin, especially in areas where skin became very dry because of the heat. So they used to smear their skin with oil. They're benefiting from the oil as you eliminate it, as you use it up, and therefore you can use you can use Shemitah produce for that. But then the Mishnah tells us that when we say that it can be used for eating, it means to eat something that it's normal that it's normal to eat it. Now, what that means is the following. It's actually coming to tell us two things. Number one, it's telling us that even though we know that the Torah says Shemitah produce must be eaten and it cannot be ruined. Well, what happens if I have a ruined food out of food that's spoiled? Do I have to eat it? Can't throw it out because I can't ruin it? The answer is that this halacha, that I have to use Shemitah produce for eating, not to ruin it, is only something that it's normal to eat. Darkly, it's customary to eat it. But spoiled food, which is not customary to eat, you're allowed to ruin, you're allowed to throw it away. So that's the first halacha that the Mishnah is teaching us when it says that Shemitah is given to be eaten by something that it's customary to eat. I mean, it's customary to eat it in that way. Another thing included is that you can only eat it in a way that's customary to eat it. That means a food that's typically cooked, you may not eat it uncooked. A food that's made that is typically uncooked, you're not allowed to cook it. That's also to eat something that its way is to be eaten. That means in the manner that it's eaten. Okay, that's the first part of the Mishnah. The Mishnah continues, and to anoint oneself with something that it's normal to use it, it's customary to use it for anointing. And therefore the Mishnah says, one should not anoint oneself with wine or with vinegar, because those things are not usually used for anointing. And when it comes to oil, that you were permitted to anoint yourself with, because it is customary to use it for anointing. So that's the first part of the Mishnah, is dealing with the laws of Shemitah. Now we say the same laws will apply to two other things. The same thing applies to Truma and to Meiser Sheni. Truma is what we take off from the new produce for the Kohen. Meiser Sheni is what we take off from the new produce to eat it in Yerushalayim, or to redeem it unto money, take the money to Yerushalayim to eat. These foods have special halacha, special laws, and so too by Truma, halacha is that you can eat it, you can drink it, and you could use it for smearing, as long as the conditions are met before, that it is the normal way of using it in that form. The same with Meiser Sheni. As long as it's normal to use the food in the form of either eating, drinking, or smearing, the Meiser Sheni can be used that way also. Again, following the same rules as before. I'm not so sure, actually, just come to think about it, if there's halacha you can't throw out truma. I'm not aware of that. But again, the point is it can be used for eating, for smearing, and for drinking. Kal mehem shvuot shvius. Shvius has a leniency over the other two we just mentioned of truma and meiser sheni. Shenitna ladlachas haner. You can use it to light a candle. Meaning now we have a fourth, or actually maybe a fifth usage of truma produce, and that is if I have truma oil, and Shemitah oil, and I want to use it to burn it, we're going to use it to light, to use it as fuel for a lamp, I'd be allowed to do that. I benefit from it. It's similar to eating. I benefit from it as I consume it, as I eliminate it. So it's like eating, and therefore there is no problem doing that when it comes to Shemitah produce. When it comes to truma oil, or when it comes to Meiser Sheni oil, there are going to be exceptions. So for instance, truma that is tahar, truma that is pure, it's usable, that oil, you cannot use it for burning. You have to use it for eating. If the truma becomes tameh, it becomes impure, it came into contact with a source of ritual impurity, as we refer to tuma, then the halacha is that actually that truma has to be burned, and once it has to be burned, you could use it for fuel. So if we're talking about oil of truma that became tameh, it has to be burned, that's the halacha. Truma that becomes tameh, becomes impure, you have to burn it. If I'm talking about oil, I can use it to light a candle with it. So there's one difference between truma and shemitah. Truma, you could only burn the truma oil and use it as fuel for a candle if the truma is impure. Shemitah, but if it's pure, you can't use truma. Shemitah, whether it's pure, whether it's impure, you can use it. You can use the oil for fuel purposes. When it comes to Meiser Sheni, there's also an exception, and that is, according to the Bartanura, Meiser Sheni, that is pure, that there's nothing wrong with it, or that there's nothing wrong with you, you're pure. The halacha is I can use Meiser Sheni oil for lighting a candle as long as I am in a state of purity. If I'm not in a state of purity, I'm not allowed to be using it, the Meiser Sheni. But once I come into a state of impurity, then I can't use the Meiser Sheni oil for burning. So there is another difference between Shemitah and the Meiser Sheni. No matter what state of purity or impurity you're in when it comes to Shemitah, you can use the Shemitah oil for fuel for a candle, while if we're talking about Meiser Sheni and you're in a state of impurity, then you would not be able to use that oil for fuel purposes. And therefore, it comes out, as the Mishna says, that Shemitah is more lenient than them when it comes to the fact that it can be used for lighting a candle, because there are no exceptions to using oil of Shemitah for lighting a candle, while there are exceptions if we're talking about truma oil or Meiser Sheni oil. Okay, that is the Mishnah. Now we'll do the Sefer HaMitzvot. We are up to mitzvah days, and today we're going to do two mitzvahs because they are very much related, or they're pretty much exact. This Mishnah Beis, mitzvahs lo yisaseh shlo yira'eh chametz b'reshus Yisrael kol shivas yemei HaPesach. Prohibition against chametz being seen in the property or ownership of a Jew all 7 days of Pesach. Shenemar, as the pasuk states, v'lo yira'eh lecha chametz shivas yamim. Chametz should not be seen by you, to you, for 7 days. That's prohibition. Chametz may not be seen by you. This applies in all places at all times, both women and by women. Now we have the second mitzvah, second prohibition, which is identical. Mitzvahs lo yisaseh shlo yematzeh chametz b'reshus Yisrael. A prohibition against chametz being found in the domain or in the ownership of a Jew. So we have one prohibition that says it should not be seen. The other one says it should not be found. They're identical. They're the same thing. It's actually an example where the Torah gives us two prohibitions for the same thing. Shenemar, as the pasuk states, Shivas yomim sa'ar lo yivatzeh b'vateichem. For 7 days, sa'ar, leavened bread, sourdough, shall not be found in your homes. Meniach chametz b'beiseh b'Pesach. One who allows or leaves chametz in his house on Pesach. Going for instance, shechimetz isa b'Pesach. He allowed a dough to become chametz on Pesach itself, and he left it in his house. He didn't immediately remove it. Or he bought chametz on Pesach, he intentionally stored it in his property. He bought it and he intentionally held on to it. It doesn't have to be only his property. If he owns it, it's a problem. But the point is, he owned it and he's holding on to it intentionally. that person would get lashes twice. He'd get two sets of lashes because he has transgressed both Bal Yira, which means not to be seen, and Bal Yamatz, not to be found, at the same time. Two prohibitions the Torah gave. But in these examples, he's going to get lashes because an act was involved. He had the dough, and he allowed it to become chametz, and it stopped being chametz. Allowing something to leaven is called an act that's called an act. That's called an act. When you buy the chametz, that's called an act, and therefore there will be lashes involved in that. If the case is where he left before Pesach chametz in his property, and he didn't remove it on Pesach, he will have transgressed both these prohibitions, but there's no lashes. There was no act involved on Pesach itself regarding having the chametz. So there's two prohibitions, but there's no lashes in that case. Next, chametz shel akam hanimtza b'reshus Yisrael. The chametz of a guy that is found, that is located in the property of a Jew. If a Jew accepts responsibility for it, it means he's throwing it by you, and you took responsibility on yourself that he's got to get it back as is, or you're going to pay him for it. You're responsible for it. They're not allowed to leave it on your domain. Basically, halacha recognizes that when you take responsibility for something to the point that if you can't give it back, you have to pay for it, that's like a certain level of ownership. And therefore, you can't own his chametz. It can't be your chametz, even at this level, and therefore you got to get rid of it. You got to tell him to take it back. You got to make sure you give it back to him. Now, let's say you did not accept responsibility. He's leaving it there. If something happens to it, it's not your problem. Then there's no prohibition to leave it there. As it's written, it shall not be seen to you. This means what's yours you're not allowed to have, but others you may have. Theoretically, according to the Torah law, if it's not your chametz, it's not a problem. And therefore, if this non-Jew left the chametz there, and you have no responsibility whatsoever for it, somebody else's chametz in your property, not your problem, according to Torah law. Now, if let's say the Jew didn't accept responsibility, but according to civil law, he can sue you for it in the non-Jewish courts, even if he did not accept responsibility, but at the end of the day, the fact that it's there would allow this guy, according to civil law, to be able to make you pay for it, to make you responsible for it. Then you're going to have to remove it. Chametz that Pesach passed over it, meaning it was their owned, and it was owned by a Jew over Pesach. The sages said you're not allowed to have any benefit from it as a fine. For transgressing the prohibitions, these prohibitions that it shouldn't be seen, it shouldn't be found. Even if you forgot them there unintentionally, they still forbade it. They fined you for the fact that even if you forgot, it wasn't intentional, but you forgot it, you should have been more on top of the situation. You were negligent, and therefore they fined you also. This applies in all places, at all times, both by men and by women. Have a wonderful day.